3,724. Breaking news in our second story in the countdown. That's how much incumbent Republican Senator and convicted felon Ted Stevens is currently trailing Democratic challenger Mark Begich in Alaska at this hour, with almost all of the votes counted. And the Associated Press has just called that race for Mark Begich. Most of the remaining votes will be tallied up later tonight, with more overseas ballots to be counted over the next few days. But the Associated Press says there's only 2,500 votes left to be counted, which means Begich's lead is insurmountable. It is still unclear if Senator Stevens will request a recount starting in early December. But joining us now for more on this breaking news, Huffington Post contributor Lawrence O'Donnell. And Lawrence, first of all, your reaction to the news. And my math suggests that if Stevens wants a recount based on the margin, he would have to pay for it himself.
Yeah, this has been trending this way, and this is the most conservative way you could call it. This was, I think, actually in rough terms, callable prior to now. This will, if it holds, deprive us of a possible run for the Senate by Sarah Palin. If Ted Stevens had been reelected, then he probably would have faced a move to expel him from the Senate next year. That would have opened up a special election in Alaska, because they do not have appointment power by the governor there of a new senator. And we may have seen in that scenario the candidacy of Sarah Palin for Senate. Instead, we'll have what looks like a more orderly transition in the Alaskan Senate situation. And this is, it seems, the end of Senator Stevens' career.
And in fact, just today, the Republican Senate leaders had a resolution that they drafted, essentially, that would have expelled or started the process of expelling Senator Stevens. They pushed that off until Thursday, thinking that there would be this very call. But how much pressure is there now on the Republican side on Senator Stevens to declare an end and just let it go?
Well, Stevens doesn't respond to pressure. I mean, I think I've certainly seen that throughout his career. That certainly was my experience in the years that I worked in the Senate when he was there. So there's really no such thing as putting pressure on Ted Stevens. I think this makes for a more quiet end to his Senate career than we would have otherwise seen. And this, I think, is a tremendous relief to the Republican Party in the Senate right now.
And as far as Ted Stevens, I mean, he's responsible for so much pork and projects that will have gone to Alaska over these many years. He's the longest-serving Republican senator. How big a vacuum does that lead on something like appropriations or these other committees where he had so much power?
Well, that sort of work has gotten a bad name, certainly during this last Republican presidential campaign. Earmarks was what the McCain campaign was all about for a while there. And usually after a presidential campaign like that, there is an inhibiting effect on that kind of activity, you know, when it's become such a large item in the campaign. And so this would have been a tough world for Stevens to continue to play the earmark game for Alaska. And so Alaska is going to have to get by without that massive flow from Ted Stevens, but it is still, and it will remain, a client state, as it were, of the federal government. Alaska will always take in much more money from the federal government than it sends to the federal government.
And by the way, an update on why the Associated Press is calling it now, even though there's still some votes to be counted. The difference, 3,724, but the remaining votes to be tabulated, 2,500, and these are overseas ballots. So again, no way that Ted Stevens can make up that difference. In any case, Lawrence O'Donnell, stand by. We'll be right back with him.